Namaskar and good evening. On behalf of the NKGSB Cooperative Bank Limited, I, Priyamvada, welcome you all on the occasion of a special lecture conducted in the memory of Sheth Shantaram Mangesh Kulkarni to be delivered by Honourable CA Suresh Prabhu. On the dais, we have with us the Chairperson CA Himangi Nadkarni, Vice Chairman Mr. Kirane Kamath, Managing Director Mr. Sunil Panse, and of course, today's keynote speaker, Honourable CA Suresh Prabhu. As the dignitaries are on the dais, I now request all of you to stand up for the national anthem.
पंजाब सिंधु गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल गंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्छल जलधि तरंगा तब शुभ नामे जागे तब शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तब जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे.
Please be seated. I now request the dignitaries on the dais to proceed for garlanding the photo of bank's founder, Shri Sheth Shantaram Mangesh Kulkarni. Alongside, I request them to light the auspicious lamp. As the lamp is lit, Annapurna Stotra is now played in the background.
नित्यानन्दकरी वराभयकरी सौन्दर्यरत्नाकरी निर्धूताखिलघोरपावनकरी प्रत्यक्षमाहेश.
Well, as mentioned in the beginning, today's lecture is a part of lecture series held in memory of the founder of this bank, Sheth Shantaram Mangesh Kulkarni, a visionary who more than a century ago laid the foundation of NKGSB Bank way back in 1917. Moving ahead from its modest beginnings, NKGSB today is a multi-state bank with 104 branches spread across 5 states and union territories. It was in the year 1998 that the bank commenced a series of lectures inviting eminent personalities from the fields of economics, banking and finance, literature, law, advertising, science and technology, and other fields to deliver lectures. This noble initiative was and remains a part of bank's commitment to its shareholders, its stakeholders, and of course, the society at large. A mere glance at the list of eminent speakers and the topics covered in the past almost 21 odd years reflects on the aspirations and the changing profile of India's development, including those in finance and banking sectors. Considering the experts invited and the topics covered, I must say that these lecture series could well be seen in future as a heritage of India's post-globalization aspirations. In continuation with its tradition, today we welcome a very distinguished speaker, Honourable C.A. Suresh Prabhu. I request the Vice Chairman, Mr. Kirani Kamath, to welcome the keynote speaker with a bouquet of flowers. Before I invite him to deliver his address, allow me to introduce this evening's distinguished speaker, Honourable C.A. Suresh Prabhakar Prabhu. He wears many hats. He is comfortable in various fields, and it seems like he seamlessly moves from one responsibility to the other, displaying equal panache on every step. He has wide political and administrative experience, a seasoned parliamentarian, and currently the Member of Parliament. He has also held various cabinet portfolios. In 1996, for a very brief period though, he was the Union Minister for Industry and then Union Cabinet Minister for Environment and Forest for Government of India, 1998 to 99, Union Cabinet Minister for Chemicals and Fertilizers from 1999 to 2000, Union Minister for Power, 2000 to 2002, Union Minister for Railways for the Government of India from 2014 to 2017, which I think was his very, very popular stint. And then, of course, during this tenure, he was also the Prime Minister's Sherpa for the G20 Summit in 2014 and 15. He was Union Minister for Commerce and Industry 2017-2019, and during the same period, he held a portfolio as Union Minister for Civil Aviation for the Government of India. His contribution as Union Minister strongly reflects his belief in administrative transparency and environmental sustainability. He has scripted various reforms and effected organizational transformations during this period. His commitment to academics is another facet of his deep beliefs towards education, of course. He is the founding chancellor of Rishihood University at Haryana, also a visiting professor, the Grantham Research Institute on Climate Change and Environment at the London School of Economics, London, and an adjunct professor at the NIS, Bengaluru. A chartered accountant by qualification, he is an entrepreneur and banker par excellence. He has active social engagement with relevant NGOs and national and international social impact bodies, including chairman of Asia Energy Foundation and also as president World Forum for Global Governance at UK. Following his academic passion, he has also published widely on social and economic issues. He enjoys art and music and is, of course, a music aficionado. Sports enthusiast that he is also a committed philatelist. With these words, I now invite CA Suresh Prabhu to deliver his address titled New Development Paradigm at the 22nd Sheth Shantaram Mangesh Kulkarni Memorial Lecture. So it's all yours.
Good evening, friends. Let me thank my friends and colleagues, the chairperson, the vice chairman, and all other office bearers, directors of NKGSB Bank, also the staff and management, customers, and all other well-wishers of the bank for inviting me to deliver this lecture. Probably when you are telling about so many people have spoken before me, I must be the only one who is speaking second time, because I had spoken here some years ago, and so I'm very honored and very happy that I'm getting this opportunity to speak to all of you. We have a very close relationship between several banks, but particularly Saraswat Bank and NKGSB Bank shared very close relationship. I was just asking the chairperson, when was this bank formed? It is a year older than Saraswat Bank. So obviously, we always look up to the NKGSB Bank, because I was director, vice chairman, chairman of Saraswat Bank. I was the youngest ever chairman of not only Saraswat Bank, probably somewhere else. But we always wanted to learn from somewhere, and NKGSB Bank was always there to offer advice, guidance, and most importantly, commandership. If you wanted to work together, it was always there. So you can always lean on the shoulders of NKGSB Bank and try to take it forward. So I'm very happy that as a cooperator, as former chairman of Saraswat Bank, and I'm very happy to be here again sharing the platform with the leadership of NKGSB Bank. It is a character of a person, or for that matter, character of an institution, is reflected in their way they remember somebody else who has done something to the institution or to the individual. Normally, our society, unfortunately, is now developing into not necessarily remembering the contribution of others made to our own lives. So gratitude is becoming a rarity. And in that background, NKGSB Bank has been consistently remembering the founder, Shantaram Mangesh Kulkarni, and honoring his memory by organizing this series of lectures. So I must congratulate and compliment you for developing this attribute in your own institutional personality of ensuring that all those who have contributed in the past are remembered and remembered rightly. So I hope this tradition will continue and will also proliferate into other areas. Others will also follow, and therefore this will be a very good idea to develop, that those who founded an institution, today it's a very big institution. It is in 5 states, almost more than 25,000 crores of total 11,000, but total business 11,000 crores. So large organization, but still today it has become large. But if it was not founded, where was the possibility of it becoming big? So sometimes we always, particularly I am from Konkan, so most of us are from that coastal area only, either in Karnataka part Konkan, which is called, North Canara, South Canara, or some are from Goa, and I am from Malwan, the same coast, of course, the west coast. But when we go to our native place, we always enjoy particularly in the month of April, May, the mangoes of that area. But we eat mango today, but if the tree was not planted some 20, 30 years ago by some of our forefathers, it would never have been possible for us to enjoy the fruits. So I really want to congratulate you and also thank you. Shantaram Mangesh Kulkarni formed this institution with a mission. He migrated from Karwar to Mumbai, and those days when people from Karwar they used to migrate to Mumbai, the job was waiting for them. Because there was another Karwari who is already working somewhere would ensure that someone who is now become Mumbaikar will get a job. I remember because you mentioned I'm a chartered accountant, there was a very famous firm called A. Ferguson and Company. So there are many Karwaris in A. Ferguson and Company. So like that there were so many institutions. So he also had migrated earlier. He did a job in a court, I think. And then subsequently he started his own commercial activity. And he became so successful, that's why he acquired the title of Sheth Shantaram. And that time, after becoming successful, and that's a tradition which NKGSB Bank is following, he did not forget his roots. He had suffered a pain of transition, so he ensured that all others will not necessarily have to suffer the same, and he therefore formed many institutions. If I am not mistaken, the two prominent one, of course, NKGSB is the one which is now we are honoring him, honoring his memory. But other one was in Jogeshwari, where the housing society, Saraswati Colony. And that is something which again, I used to go there very often because many of my friends were staying there. Also because of the same person, that people could get shelter, and having got a house, then they needed to start a business, he was always there to help them. So he started these two institutions with a mission, with a purpose, and it is always important, particularly for others like those who are attending this program, that if you start with a noble objective, not necessarily everything noble objective will succeed, but there's a good chance it will succeed because the objective was so noble. And therefore today's NKGSB Bank, more than 105 years old, is succeeding, surviving, thriving because of the noble objective with which it was formed. So I must pay my tribute to his memory, and I'm sure so many others will get inspired by that and will continue to carry on such activities. So today I have been asked to speak on a very interesting issue. New development paradigm. Whenever, anytime we meet anybody, the normal conversation is always like this, that my time was a good time. Those days we're not like this. Nowadays, it's all very bad. So this is always, we try to live in the past and always try to run down the present. And that is particularly true when we'll always frown upon the younger generation, saying that you are useless, we were so good, we used to respect others, we did something good, now it is a lot of degeneration. So this is a normal thing that we always try to engage in such type of conversation. But today if you look at it, looks like that world is running out of options. We have done huge progress depending upon how you measure the progress, what you call development. See, for example, there is one of our senior journalists, I don't know where he's gone, he was sitting at Prakash Kulkarni here. So he was editor of Navashakti. And that Navashakti, where Mr. Balasaheb Thackeray used to be a cartoonist. So he used to always, although he was editor of Samna, he always used to say, I read Navashakti without fail. So he will tell you that what is development. I grew up in Mumbai, Khar. So those were the days when after the school, not those were the days, even now it must, the same time, we want to spend more time outside the school than in the school. So after the school, we'll go into Pali Hill with the neighborhood and we used to pluck mangoes from the trees on the roadside. And now nobody will believe it. I was asking her, N.S. Rao, who used to stay there in that Union Park, who is one of the founder of the other bank. Not founder, but a senior leader of SVC Bank. So he used to live in the Union Park. So now, those mango orchard has gone, trees have gone, and new buildings have come up. Mumbai, if you see the old photographs, it looks completely different. Now some people may say, oh, so much of development has happened in Mumbai. Or Mr. Chalke also, Lal Bagh Parel area where he runs a Apna Sahkari Bank. There was a time when there was development means exactly what? He's demolishing all old structures, getting rid of trees, losing greenery, and coming out with bigger towers. Is it development? Or development means something else? So today, the world has to face a reality check. A reckoning of truth has come. When we are running out of options for a simple reason, is that the world is built, modern world, on the basis of utilization of resources. And the resources are natural resources, which are created not by the man. There are of course man-made resources also available, like you say fiber. You can wear a natural fiber like cotton or jute, or you can wear a man-made fiber. So man can also make something. But what is the source of all of that, somewhere or the other, is natural resource. I always give example, like see example of this table. The wood is natural. This may be manufactured product, but you cannot manufacture it without a raw material which is mineral, made by nature. You cannot even develop medicine, which everything has to do with somewhere the nature. So development of so-called edifice of the modern economy and modern society for that matter is because of use of natural resources. And now the world is exhausting those resources rapidly. In fact, there are many studies which have been made on the subject which makes us believe that we have more than one planet available because we are using all the resources, something somewhere is available. Like for example, I earn something and I have to maybe earn whatever I earn has to last for a month because next money will come, my next paycheck will come. But I exhaust all my resources in 10-15 days. But luckily, Mrs. Nadkarni is there, Mr. Kamath is there, so they'll give overdraft. Chalo, theek hai, you use it. So Nadkarni and Kamath can give overdraft for a money which can be created. But nature has not created such overdraft arrangement. If you lose the resource, you cannot replenish them. There are some resources which are replenishable. For example, underground water. The nature gives us enough water. At least in India, we get about 4% of the global fresh water is available in India, which may think only 4%, but if quantity-wise, it's not small. But now we are exhausting all the surface water, and we are now almost exhausting the groundwater. So groundwater could have been replenished, the aquifers could have been recharged, but now we are exhausting all the opportunities. So worldwide, the resources are getting exhausted, and therefore the entire structure that has been created based on the resources is not likely to survive. In fact, there is enough evidence available that maybe even more than a century is long enough period for the biological life on the planet will survive if we go the same way as we call business as usual way. And therefore in that context, we have to find out other way. And therefore, we have to think about a new development paradigm, new idea. It is not possible, you cannot go on like this. Because there is nothing available, how can you do like this? If you take water from the well, for example, and not water, I am talking about major resources. But when you go to our native place, we always go into the well and take the water out. But if there is no water in the well, what can you take out? So now, the world has reached a point wherein it's not just possible for us to go the way we are going, and therefore we need a different kind of thinking, different kind of a model for development, so-called development. And then it comes back to the point, what do you mean by development? Thus development means, and there are many parameters to judge it. You can say the global GDP is one such parameter. If you go by that, yes, we have achieved amazing amount of success. World is now almost $90 trillion. We are of course 3 trillion. US is the largest one, 23 trillion. China is almost 18 trillion. But one of parameter can be that. But is it really the only parameter based on the GDP growth? Very interestingly, the GDP has grown, but more importantly, with the GDP growth, it is presumed, because when you say GDP is not right parameters, okay, so we'll go by per capita income. So how do you calculate per capita income? Total GDP divided by the population of the country. So we may be the 5th largest economy, and we should be proud of it, but still in terms of per capita income, we are very, very low. Because our per capita income is just about $2,100. So, per capita income again does not give a right answer, because if you say $2,100, it's not bad. It's like almost 2 lakhs of rupees, almost 170, almost 2 lakh of rupees. But there are a large number of people in India which needs different kind of treatment. So during pandemic, thanks to Prime Minister Modi, we are giving free food to 85 crore people. Today, that number we have brought it to 82, 83 crore people, wherein they will get free ration for another year. So just imagine, if the per capita income is the right criteria, that may everybody gets 2 lakh of rupees income, then why they should get free food? But because per capita income again is not a right way to judge the social status, the economic conditions of people, because the total GDP of 3 trillion, if you go, there are various ways of calculating GDP. You can go by the total incomes, or you can go by industry, services, agriculture put together. And if you take income, that means the poorest person's income is also calculated in the GDP, and the richest man's income is also calculated. And then you come to the average and you say it's $2,000, $2,100. So worldwide, this is true. So while GDP has increased, per capita incomes also have increased proportionately, but inequality has increased so much. I will just give some number, just will be shocking number. How much is inequality? I just wanted to know, was wondering. So richest people in the world, 26 richest people in the world, their income is equivalent to 3.8 billion people of the world. So 26 richest people in the world have the same income, or wealth rather, which is equivalent to the combined wealth of 3.8 billion poor people. Now if you go by the global GDP of $85 trillion, $90 trillion, and divide it by now we have got 8 billion people, you'd say per capita income looks good. But if per capita includes also these 26 richest people, whose income is equal to 3.8 billion people, poor people. So just imagine 3.8 is almost half of the world population. We are just reached 8. So it's almost half the population of the world. So can you imagine how disproportionate it is? So is it what can you call development? When there is so much of inequality, then people would always feel that, oh, I'm poor is okay, but why is he so much richer than me? And nowadays, we are always, Indians also lived in poverty, but with dignity. But when you see somebody else spending money as if it's like water is scarcer nowadays, so we cannot say like water. But when he's spending money on that proportion, that poor person will think, what is wrong? How can this will happen? So therefore, this inequality is something again, is not sustainable. It's not tenable. And therefore we need a different kind of a development paradigm for that. And we must think about it in a different way. If you go by the poverty is another issue. And globally, it's not just India. Global, there are a large number of poor. And then how you calculate poverty? US calculates poverty when they say if somebody is earning less than $25 a day, he's poor. But Ethiopia will calculate poverty by saying if it is less than $2 a day, we are poor. And both are right. And therefore we came out with a new formulation called purchasing power parity. So that what a particular currency, because currencies are different, currencies get overvalued, devalued for no rational reasons. And therefore poverty is something difficult to calculate, but you can see the abject poverty in many parts of the world. And therefore this again is something, can it really remain? We saw recently, not recently, a few years ago, Arab Spring, when people realized that they cannot carry on like this. So therefore, is it something, a product of so-called present development, the so many poor, so many inequality in the society, can it remain? And if it not, then obviously we need to think about a different kind of a paradigm. Very interestingly, only 10% of the population has 76% of the wealth. That is something shocking. And more than 71% of the people live in poverty. Now in that context, we must find out how can it work. So one side is the so-called foundation of this growth, foundation of this so-called development itself is under threat and cannot go on. Just look at something which is we and me can understand better. Some countries in the world, the richest countries in the world, see the largest economy is US. What is US public debt to GDP ratio? 150%. Second largest economy, China. Of course, China, very difficult to say what is the real number. But aggregation of their provincial government and the sovereign debt has to be more than 200% of the GDP. Japan, third largest economy, it is 260% is public debt to GDP ratio. Now just imagine, is it something the governments have borrowed hugely to somehow survive the day? Would you give loan to a borrower who says that my total lending is 4, 5 times or 20 times of my total turnover, forget profit? Can you give a loan to somebody like that? But governments can borrow because they have sovereign powers and therefore they borrow. But what's going to happen? This borrowing is for today. But a day, someday, somebody will have to pay. You are giving me overdraft. But someday you will say, okay, please pay. You cannot go on overdraft for life. So the banks, the government's debt has to be serviced. And servicing from where? What is the source of the government that they will service it? From the taxes that will collect from the people. So just imagine a day of reckoning is coming soon, when today you will be paying taxes for paying the earlier debts. Servicing debt includes interest and principal. So you'll pay debt from current income of the people who pay taxes to pay for somebody else. You pay tax to get some service in return. But you are now going to, these citizens of many countries in the world, particularly the developed countries of the world, will pay pay taxes to service the earlier obligations of the previous governments. Is it sustainable? Why anybody will pay for some time, you tell me. So day is going to come when people are going to say, why should I pay taxes if I have to not get service in return? Because how can you get service in return unless government borrows more? And borrowing more means you are again creating another obligation. So you are postponing a problem, but creating a bigger problem by postponing it from today's problem. So that again, is it sustainable? Because we see this 85, 80, 90 trillion dollar economy, and we survived the pandemic because we gave out with large fiscal packages. But the day of reckoning is bound to come when this cannot be sustained. And that again is the question about the new development paradigm that is going to happen. And then the big environmental problem that we are facing, climate change is the reality. And therefore I was saying whether we'll survive for a century or not. And there are many people who are saying because the temperatures once rise beyond 2 degrees centigrade from the time it was there in the industrial evolution, I think most of the living life on the planet will find it very difficult to adjust to that. As it is, we have lost a lot of biodiversity. And human beings are also product of biodiversity. We are not self-created, that somebody will light a lamp and human being was created. We are a process of evolution. In fact, very interestingly, the nature was born, the life was on the planet was born 3.5 billion years ago. Now it's debatable. There are people who say it came from evolution, the Darwinian theory, or somebody said a big bang, it happened in one stroke and life was created. It depends on faith. Some people believe that God created it. It's possible, whatever is the reason, but still it is about 3.5 billion years ago the life was born on the planet. And when was the human being was born? 3.5 billion ago, life was born on the planet, and the first human was born about 20 lakhs, 2 million years ago. And our ancestors, because they were different kinds of humans, 4 or 5 at least, and we killed them. I don't know whether we don't have evidence whether we killed them, but they got eliminated. And only one species of the human survived, Homo sapiens, which were born about 2-3 lakh years ago. So 2-3 lakh years ago only we have been moving in the same form that we all are. But planet, life was born much, much earlier, 2.7 billion years ago. So sometimes people ask this question, and that's what I'm talking about development. Like, why we are worried about one tree, get rid of it? This forest is useless. What is in forest? Get down the forest and build something better. Dams, roads. Now, of course, what is happening in Joshimath is a good reminder in Uttarakhand. But those who say this about development, you must remember that we are born much, much later after the nature was born. So animals were born much before us. Now it's a different matter that humans have become animals, worse than them. That's a different matter. But we were born much, much later, so therefore this man-animal conflict, and people ask this question, why should animals be there? Kill them. Why? So the old Maharajas, in all their palaces, there were various stuffed corpses were put there on display. I think one day we'll be even worse than the corpse because who is going to stuff us? All will be gone. At least the animals, they were somewhere there. But why I'm saying this, the climate change is threatening. And what is climate change? Is reality. It's proved beyond doubt by science, 100% proved. That is human-induced. The industrial evolution of 1800 onwards caused climate change. And therefore, who caused it? Human beings caused it. And based on the industrial evolution, we are saying we are done development. But industrial revolution was the cause of the problem. And therefore this is not sustainable, this cannot remain. And therefore we really need to look at the new development paradigm for this. Before that, industrial revolution of 1800, about 12,000 years ago, we started so-called agriculture revolution. Till that time, the animals were living on foraging or hunting. So they are not attached to a particular thing. Agriculture means they have to stay in one place, otherwise how can you do agriculture? You plant something today, you have to water it, and of course that time there was no irrigation, that much came much later. But still nature has to water, then you have to make sure that some others will not intrude into your, like wild animals will live next door. But that started a different kind of a change in the human behavior and human life. The agriculture revolution changed the entire pattern of societies, not just of economy. Interestingly, at the time of agriculture revolution, we are only maximum 50 lakhs to 1 crore people on the planet, whole planet. And then at the time of industrial revolution, we had grown to 1 billion. Now we become 8 billion in such a short time. But what was interesting was that the agriculture revolution caused a different kind of structure. Before that, everybody was unto himself. He will go with companion. Even the concept of marriage was not born. So people were living the way they wanted to live. So there was no something like a hierarchy. Everybody was a king and everybody was unto himself or herself. But an agriculture revolution means people had to settle down. They became sedentary life, and therefore that required a different structure. So there became social structures evolved. Hierarchical societies were born, and that started a different kind of a living idea. So hierarchy, which was informal initially, then over a period of time, the so-called development, we created an institutionalized structure, and now every country has adopted that structure. So governments are there others are there, and therefore they are all working on this. So I think with all these changes that have happened, and now we find it very difficult, and because agricultural revolution, the new concept of wealth was born. Till that time there was nothing concept of wealth. Everybody could do what they wanted to do. Even Adam Smith, he wrote much, much later, the very famous book on wealth of the nations. But that concept was completely different than what it is today. And therefore, today we are facing a different challenges, and people don't realize, but we are also facing challenge because of population. It is unsustainable. 8 billion people on the planet, it's just not, they cannot survive at all. In fact, thanks to agriculture revolution, we started producing so much of food that the food created possibilities of more people could survive on this planet. So this Malthusian theory that over a period of time population will go down because it cannot survive, failed, at least for that particular time, not permanently, because technology created so much of food available. But now the agriculture is the cause of a problem that is degrading soil, taking a lot of water. In fact, in India, we use more than 85% of the water goes into agriculture. And we cannot live without either food or water. So that again is just something which is not going to happen for long. And therefore, we have to face that as a reality. How can we work on this? So it's already a lot of time has gone, so let me just quickly talk about, in this global context, all the challenges. Other challenge which we are facing today, and we don't realize it today because we are enjoying it, is a challenge posed by technology. Now, the artificial intelligence, we are creating something. So far we are thinking at least the machines, the robots are becoming, so that's fine, they'll do something, but we can still control them. The remote is in my hand. But now we are creating artificial intelligence. I think, I really don't know what it's going to lead to. But technology is a cause of huge development of societies, human beings, so-called development, again as I'm saying, what is development, as well as the new creation happened. Because till such time that technological revolutions happen in the world, that is a simple way how the economy or the economic output will happen. That depends upon human effort. If you work more, you can create more. But technology meant that you, without working, you can create. The Elon Musk never goes to the shop floor to create a car, but still was, till recently, the richest man in the world. But that was possible because of technology. But now technology, new development is also going to threaten. So with all this, we have a challenges. So the development model that we have built is something we have serious question marks. But again, as I was saying, I have a hope that one thing human beings have, which machines will find it very difficult to evolve, it will happen now the way we are going, is something called wisdom. So I hope the wisdom will prevail, and therefore we'll be able to retrieve from an imminent danger of falling into the abyss. I hope that, and on that I think we'll work on that. But while we do this, I'll just give an example about, this is nothing to do with these global issues and everything else, but in new development paradigm I thought I will add something very interesting. All of us come from, all of us, originally at least, we came from the coastal areas, most of us, or all of us must have come from some part of the villages somewhere or the other. So I'll share with you a personal experience, which is purely personal and nothing to do with all these global challenges and the new development paradigm I thought about, but it's also the new paradigm for development. I was accidental politician, really speaking. I never thought I will be in politics. I was saying chartered accountant, I was in cooperators, I was doing so many things. But somehow I was invited. I never applied for ticket. I was invited and I won 4 Lok Sabha elections. Then Prime Minister Modi invited me when I had not even contested Lok Sabha in 2014. But that's a different thing. But I become Lok Sabha MP. I started thinking, what is development? I was elected from Konkan. So people there, extremely talented, very accomplished in their respective fields, but not necessarily economically developed. Now that is the big paradox, that such talent, and yet people are not getting opportunities. And if you get opportunity, it is not necessarily in the areas in which that person is interested. It is like always you put round nuts in square plug. So this is always a case that if person doesn't get the right opportunity in the areas in which he is interested, first he will not excel because he is a reluctant participant in that activity, but also he will get after some time frustrated. And if you don't get opportunity at all, then you will become cynic. So most of the people in that part of the country, you will always see, even in Karwar, with all of those who did not migrate, they are very competent. But because they did not get opportunity, they are very cynic. They will always say, nothing is good. So I thought, why not we develop something that can we make individual-centric development possible? Now how do you make individual-centric development? For that, you must understand a human being. The first, his aptitude, what he wants. Is it possible in a country of more than 1.4 billion now that you can understand everybody's aptitude? Is impossible. So we made the best, second best possible choice, and that was we divided the population into 6 different interest groups. Fishermen, because that's a coastal area. Farmers, that continues to be the major activity of the people there. Women, there are more women in Konkan than men. Not because there are more child birth, they are not more females were born, but because they migrated. Husband went for a job, son went for a job, or at least in search of job, if not for a job. And therefore he left behind his wife, his mother, his sister, so there are more women. So we said women, youth, because hopefully they will not migrate if you do work on them, backward classes and ex-servicemen. So we divided into 6 parts, and we said if we can find out a person's interest and try to give him a training into that. Dr. Amey Desai was here and he would have told you that we are trying to work on Arogya Raksha. Somebody who is interested in health, we make him a training and make him interested in using his inner idea, intrinsic interest of doing somebody, helping somebody for a healthcare. Or Kala Raksha. There are a lot of people in Konkan, they are incredibly talented in art and culture. You go to Ganpati, anybody's house, you'll find fantastic Ganesh Murti, very beautiful design, and all done by somebody who could have been the best commercial artist, but he's still doing that. So suppose if we try to develop, because he's interested, develop that trait in him, sports. Many sports persons, there at least once upon a time, there was a time when India's cricket team was out of 11, 9 will be from Mumbai. And from 9 from Mumbai, maybe 6 or 7 will be from Konkan. But those days are not there, because at least Mumbai also lost out. And that's a good thing that is now all over the country, sports persons are participating. But sports, so we can develop that talent within them and try to develop on 6 dimensions. Economy, social. Economy, therefore we started Jana Shikshan Samsthan, then started giving them training, and more than 80,000. All this is done by my wife, I was telling her. But as all husbands do, take credit for the good work done by the wife, right? So I am also not an exception to that rule. So training from economic, social, so that there will not be caste discrimination. Physical, so we gave gymnasium, sports. There should not be a possibility. Environment, so we started Eco Club. And so environmental, social, economic, physical, environmental, spiritual is not really started, and intellectual. So Dr. Abdul Kalam had come there and started a program called Jnanada, where we actually started giving computer, etc. to schools and others. That time it was very important. Computer, now it has, technology has made them obsolete. But again, all of that. And all this will happen through a concept called Parivartan Kendra. That is, for every 5 villages, the local organization will take responsibility for changing the people's mindset and work on that. Because ultimately, the development has to be development of mind. The development of human being. It is not just development of a geography. It is not just creating physical infrastructure, which is also important. But if the human beings are not developed, and human being will not be developed just by sending them to school, unless you understand the underlying intrinsic interest of that person and try to develop in that area, then only he will be happy and satisfied. So ultimately, the development paradigm will not happen, the new development will never take place unless you make human beings participating in that process of so-called development, so they must have ownership, and also same time, they will become happier human beings than before, having enjoyed the so-called development. And that is what we need from the grassroots development. So when I was the Commerce Industry Minister, I started experimenting on another thing. So this is a Parivartan Kendra model I will share with you, but something which we are trying to work on. But other thing I started, as a government, I started this program. I said, when we say development of the country, and we calculate by GDP, where the development happens? Does it happen in Delhi? So Delhi will release the numbers. My ministry was releasing the numbers that the so-called GDP growth has happened. But does it happen in my ministry or in Delhi or government offices? It happens all over the country. So where it happens? In all districts of India. So all districts of India start producing more. 2 things will happen. First, the aggregation of the district will be the growth of India. It always is the case even today. But we do it the other way around, from tops to bottom rather than its bottoms up approach. And if you do that, then the development will happen. If it happens in district to begin with, it will be people focused because it's happening in the district. And therefore we decided to launch this program in 6 districts of India. In North, Varanasi, Prime Minister Modi's program, I went to each of the districts and launched it. In South, it was Visakhapatnam in Andhra Pradesh. In East, it was Muzaffarpur in Bihar. And West, Sindhudurga Ratnagiri in Konkan. And we have taken one more district, Solan in Himachal, just to understand the topography of a hilly region. Reports were prepared by National Council for Applied Economic Research, Indian Institute of Management. Deliberately, I got them involved, not the government, so that we have a strategy. Very interestingly, we could come to the conclusion that if you work on this strategy, automatically the inequality aspect also will get addressed, which I talked about as a first law. At a global level, I was talking about it, but even local level inequality, because you are now assessing the human resource, you are understanding the natural resource, and then you want to make sure that you will manage it properly. And I was saying the relationship between natural resource and human being is very important. Nature has created different kind of species. Of course, we have many of the species, we have made them extinct. But whatever surviving, there is interesting thing. There is a predator who survives because there is a prey base. But a predator will never allow that the entire prey base is eliminated because he understands he will also not survive. So all nature's creations, they survive on the understanding about nature itself, so they have maintained the balance. Human being is the only predator who has destroyed everything that came into his orbit. In fact, when the human beings went to New Zealand and Australia, the entire megafauna were destroyed there. But that is some thousands of years ago. But today also you are seeing. But if you make local people, they have this understanding about the importance of nature and relationship with their survival. So if you really involve them and make development possible, and I was saying earlier that all development happens because use of natural resource. But if you sustainably use natural resource, development can also happen. At the same time, destruction will not happen, and this will be really long-term sustainable. So therefore, this particular experiment, which actually has started very well, of course I carried out till I was a minister of that portfolio, and if we continue with that, can also create a new paradigm for development. So as I was saying, one at an extremely local level, in Konkan we are working in 2,000 villages of two district, 13 talukas, Sindhudurga, Ratnagiri. And then I talked about national level possibilities, which we made with district-led growth, which was something which is already a model which is under implementation. And third is the global issues. But if you look at it, I started with global, but what is global really? There's nothing like global. Ultimately, in US they always say at the time of election, it's economy stupid. So finally the economy which will get you elected or not. That is not true anymore now, that's a different matter. But like the same way, everything is local. There's nothing like global. If you don't handle it locally, properly, then it becomes national to international problems. So if you want to really develop a society, a modern world, then you cannot forget the relationship between global, national and local, and try to have aligned interest and strategies to make it happen. So I was just looking at clock because I know I was asking her how much time I should speak, because you mentioned that I'm also a professor in a London School of Economics. So as professors can go on. So somebody was saying that day, so he asked me, my friend from London who is a minister there, he was saying, you are a professor. So I said, I'm not professor because I don't profess anything, but I can confess that I know nothing. So therefore, despite not knowing anything, you heard me for such a long time, so I really want to thank you. Let me once again pay my tribute to the memory of Shantaram Mangesh Kulkarni. Also thank Mrs. Nadkarni, Mr. Kamath and all his colleagues for giving me this opportunity. And I really appreciate that nowadays we say the society doesn't have patience. But if you want to see patience, all of you are here who heard me without any disturbance. Thank you very much.
You just heard the special lecture by Honourable CA Suresh Prabhu, today's eminent speaker. He started by posing a very stark statement, saying that the world is running out of options. And that really got me scared. But yes, it is true. Also, then he went ahead to say that the day of reckoning of truth is right in front of us and we should be able to face it. He did speak about utilization of natural resources, saying that they're exhausting increasingly, including water and everything as such. And then there's really nothing that can measure it perfectly well, whether it is the global GDP or the per capita income. And also stating that there's an increase in inequality across the world, not just in a particular country. And so we came up with another idea of the purchasing power parity to just try to measure it, how it can probably work for all of us. But is that even enough? And then he spoke about a few things. He pondered over a few ideas related to climate change, environment, and the loss of biodiversity. I told you earlier when I introduced him to you, saying that he is really passionate about the whole idea of sustainable development. And I think one word which we should talk about is a holistic development. Development that is not just related to economic growth, but the larger holistic way in which. He also spoke about the issue of population, saying that the earth has a huge population and limited resources, and yes, technology could be a cause of new creation, but at the end, it's the human wisdom that should perhaps take over. Even beyond the artificial intelligence, we really don't know how far it will go, but that is something that we should be looking at, the new artificial intelligence scenario. But yes, we all agree that the wisdom is something which is very important. And yes, as he went ahead to say that unless we involve humans, the very stakeholders that we talk about in the process of development and take it to the grassroots level, make it a people-focused development which is in sync with nature, it is only then that we can consider the new development paradigm to be a real success. By the end of his speech, he did share some of his own experiments and cases which he himself had initiated and worked upon. I think, as Mahatma Gandhi had said, nature has enough for everyone's needs, but not for everyone's greeds. And I think that is something which should stay with us. Thank you very much, sir, for the speech today. And this evening, we really got a food for thought to ponder once again over many things that relate to all of us, each and every one of us. It's now time for question and answer session. And if anyone here in the audience would like to pose a question, you're most welcome. With his permission, of course. Options. Yeah. Okay. I hope not. Yes, sir, please. Would you like to wait for the microphone, please?
Recently, about 5-10 days back only, there was a report in the press that in India, actually I may be just here and there in the percentage quoting, 5 or 6% of the people own nearly 90% of the wealth, while rest of the people do like that. So is it interest of our country? And ultimately, can we say what Mahatma Gandhi has said, the self-sufficient villages, will that not the answer to this actually?
See, actually speaking, there is something like universal truth which cannot be denied. So what Gandhiji said at that particular time, which holds even true for today. Because what happens actually when there is one theory that developing cities is far better and cities generate more wealth. Which is, in a way, true only from that perspective. That's what I was saying, what is development. But that is true in some extent. Like, obviously, cities create more wealth. But then, what happens? In Mumbai, we get water from 200 kilometers away. So, the first people move and then the water moves. They don't move from the same place. She came from Karwar. Doesn't mean she's bringing water from Karwar here. So, the water comes from different locations, but people move from one direction. So, there's a mismatch of the human resource as well as the natural resource. Anyway, but that's one part of the problem. But villages have the life in village had different criteria. Of course, that is not something to do with modern life. We destroyed it when we started agriculture revolution 12,000 years ago. But there is no village before 12,000 years ago in any case. We started settling down and subsequent to that the villages were developed. But that the human beings are lived on this planet for a much, much longer period than the so-called sedentary life we are living. So if our anatomy of all of us is the same. That's why the blood group can go from one place to another very easily. When you do heart transplant or another organ transplant, it can happen from despite nationality, despite geography, anybody can be transplanted. Why? Because anatomy is the same. But anatomy has remained the same, but our lifestyle has changed. So human beings bodily are the same people, but our thinking has changed, our ideas, our priority has changed. So villages, etc. is much, much recent origin. Maybe few centuries ago, maybe 1,000, 2,000, 4,000 years maximum. But even then, that much longer than the cities. So cities have not been there for that long, actually. So people migrated from there. So I think you are right. We have to make a choice. Again, I'm not going to say that turn the clock back. It is not possible. I'm also living in a city. I was sitting in Mumbai or I'm living in Delhi. I'm as much a culprit as all others are to contributing to this problem. But therefore, I'm not saying dismantle cities, but at least give enough incentive for people to live where they want to live. If there are opportunities available, that's what I will give an example of this Manav Sadhan Vikas Samstha, wherein we are trying to make sure that people don't migrate, not make sure, but making an effort actually, so that in the areas in which they are interested, they can stay back and do. But also, while they earn not just money, but they will also earn happiness because they do something in which they are interested. So that's an effort. We have to work on so many experiments. What will ultimately prevail depends upon acceptability, because everybody can get the same medicine, but a body will accept some, body will reject some. Not necessarily every body will accept the same medicine, though we are suffering from the same ailment. So same way, the social solutions are also like that. Some will be accepted, some will not be accepted. We have to keep experimenting and finding out. But one signal is very clear, that the way we are living the life today, globally, it is not going to sustain.
We'll wait for the mic.
Good evening. My name is Rajiv Joshi. Since we are at bank's platform, I am interested to know your views about what would be the role of bankers in this context of new development paradigm. Bankers' role, and what would be the bank and customer relationship?
So, it all depends upon what are we banking. We should be banking wisdom. We should be banking all our natural resources. We should be banking good practices. If you do that, then there is a scope for the bankers. So it depends on what bankers you talk about.
Sir, I'm not a student of economics or finance, but nowadays we are reading that Pakistan has gone to the bankruptcy. They are begging here and there. And we are financially becoming strong. Is it advisable that we should help Pakistan under the circumstances?
It all depends upon what is your app? See, the financing or any help you give, it always says that you must first have something in pocket, then you can give somebody. Secondly, whether the recipient deserves that help or not. So that's what we have to think about, whether it's a deserving recipient, because always say daan also should go to the right people, right? So it all depends upon that.
Okay, one last question which I will take is, sir, we were talking about development. So actually cooperative banking has started with a development seed for the people. So what development do you see for the cooperative banking now?
You know, actually speaking, if you really look at it, the cooperative is a fantastic concept. In fact, though cooperatives in this today's form is maybe a little more than a century old, but cooperation is something which is part of our culture. See, when you go to, that's what I was telling you, go to Vadala Mutt, you'll see him also wearing a lungi and going and working and going a volunteer. If somebody who is working as a managing director of a bank will go there and make sure that the shoes and chappals of everybody are properly taken care of. So this is a spirit which people work. So why they do this? He's not going to get any credit in terms of as a chartered accountant we have some programs where you get credit. So that means you are qualified now. So it's not for that, he doesn't even ask for it. Then why does he do it? And that was a fundamental question they were asking earlier, that in a village there is somebody who is interested in sports, somebody is interested in art, somebody is interested in culture, somebody same way is interested in doing social work. So that feeling is spontaneous. He's not doing it because somebody is, I will not look at, my neck is a problem. So it is not something which is, so it is not something which is happening because somebody is forcing him to do it or he is going to get anything out of it, but he's doing it because he is self-inspired, self-motivated and wants to do it because he gets some happiness. If that is the spirit on which you work, the cooperatives are actually based on that spirit. Now it's a different matter. There is an aberration. Many cooperatives function not necessarily with that singular objective. But if you really look at it, that is something which is a part of a human nature, to help others, to work with others, to create some common good, common global good, common social good. And that can be done by the cooperatives better than anybody else. So I believe in that very strongly. And I worked in cooperatives. I was involved with all levels of cooperatives from district to national to international. And I have seen good cooperatives, bad cooperatives. So cooperative itself has a great potential. But does it mean all cooperatives are doing that? No. So this is an aberration. So I personally feel we should work towards revitalizing cooperatives with that spirit of cooperative. That is like my body. I'm talking because there is something inside my body which you and me cannot see, I cannot even feel, but the life in body is because of soul in the body. If the soul goes, then it becomes a corpse. So the cooperatives can also become like that. If that soul, the spirit of the cooperative is lacking, then the cooperative institution itself will not be called cooperatives. It can claim to be cooperative only when it has the spirit of cooperatives, vibrant spirit of cooperatives still living in that organization. That is what cooperatives should be, in my opinion.
Well, thank you very much. And with that, I now invite Chairperson CA Hemangi Nadkarni to honor today's keynote speaker with a shawl, a fruit basket, and a salver. You may please do the honors. And the salver, which reads as, "With gratitude and fondest regards, presented to Honourable C.A. Suresh Prabhu on the occasion of 22nd Sheth Shantaram Mangesh Kulkarni Memorial Lecture, January 19, 2023, NKGSB Cooperative Bank Limited. Thank you very much. You may please be seated. And now to propose the vote of thanks, may I call upon the Managing Director, Shri Sunil Pandse.
Honourable Chartered Accountant Suresh Prabhuji, our Chairperson, Madam, Vice Chairman, present Board of Directors, shareholders, depositors, and my executives, colleagues. It gives me immense pleasure to propose the vote of thanks for this event. First and foremost, I would like to thank our chief guest, Honourable CA Suresh Prabhuji, for captivating us all with his wonderful speech. I would like to thank the management of IEA School for providing us this wonderful auditorium for our today's function. Thank you, Dilip Jadavji of Ashirwad Decorators for stage, sound and other arrangements made at the venue. Many thanks to Prasad Bakery and Mr. Kamath for the refreshment arranged, which all of us will shortly relish. Last but not the least, a big thank you to one and all present here for having graced this function and made it a grand success. All are requested to please join the high tea arranged at the ground floor. And with this, we declare that the program will be concluded. Thank you.
So all may please join for the high tea on the ground floor.